In this section of the course, we are going to take a look at an example of a proxy tool, whether you want to use Caido, Burp Suite, or Zap Proxy. Those are all personal preferences. I personally enjoy using Caido. It is on the cheaper side of the prices, and honestly, with the functionality that it offers, I don't need something like Burp Suite, but we also do cover Burp Suite. So if you'd rather use Burp, you can also go use Burp and look at that section. But I want to introduce you to Caido. It's been my recent go-to proxy tool that has allowed me to do a lot of my bug bounty hunting. And right here, as you can see on the screen, I am looking at my workspace, and this is where you get to manage your different projects. So for example, now that I'm making a Udemy course, I'm going to create a new project called Udemy. And right off the bat, I can click select. In this case, it has selected it. And I can also switch from going right here. So you can see I have a YouTube one, Bug Bounty Programs, IBM, my capital event that I went to with live hacking events at HackerOne, my pen test that I have with my couple of my clients. And for now, I'm going to select Udemy. But also, I want to show that you can change it from right here, no matter where you are in this tool. So the first thing you're going to see on Caido is your sitemap. So if you turn on your Burp proxy and you start proxying your browser, every site that you visit, it is going to get indexed within the left hand side. I am opening up my browser right here, and it is using Foxy proxy to send all of our traffic to port 8080. And you can see that right here, it has kind of created a list of all the sites that in the background at some point during my browsing session has made contact with that proxy. So now we can actually go into our button right here and click this button that it starts queuing. And as soon as we refresh the website right here, you can see that it has successfully intercepted and sent this request to that website. We're going to talk about more of these requests in the next section of this course, but I kind of want to take a look and show you what does it look like when you proxy a tool or actually intercept the request from a browser, and what does it look like in Caido. So this is what it looks like. It's sending a GET request to the web root using HTTP1. This is the host that we're sending the request to. Our connection is alive. There is some browser information right here, and it is also accepting some documents that are in this encoding, and there is a cookie associated. I don't have an actual session, but if we did have a session, that session cookie would also be shown in here. But this is typically what an HTTP request looks like, and also how it looks in Caido. From here is when we can decide whether or not we want to do something with this specific request. So if I want to analyze this request, what I can do is I could click on here and actually send it to replay, and you can see right here it highlights replay. That means we have one request, so I can forward or drop this. I'm going to forward this one and drop the next one and maybe drop this next one. But when I go to replay, we have that same exact request sent to this tab, but now we have the ability to play with this. So now I can add more stuff here. So if I wanted to kind of go to index.html, for example, if that file existed, then I can put that in here and it will send that request and show me the response right here. So it looks like the server came back with a 200 on this date, and it's going to say the content type is text HTML, and it's going to have some other information about the server. And this is what the source of that page looks like. You can also preview that by going to the rendering tab right here. I'm just going to cancel this really quickly to not take too much time, but you can also render it. But a lot of times you will see hackers, including yourself, will not need to render the page, and you can quickly look up the information right here. You will see in the future what this information looks like, but this is kind of what it looks like when you want to fuzz and look for vulnerabilities within Repeater. There's a couple other tabs that we can take a look at that are really, really interesting. The first one is the HTTP history that happens. Here is every request that you have made within your browser that has been caught by your proxy tool, in this case Caido. It is going to be in here, so you can actually delete all this. So let's say if you didn't want to keep this, you can delete all entries, but as the moment you refresh this page, it's going to recreate that same exact process and start indexing all of the requests that you have made. So let's say you are looking at a particular functionality on a website and you decide that you want to take a look at the different steps that it takes. So maybe it has 3 different calls that it makes, which I will show that in the future at some point. But if you wanted to look at multiple things at once, and if it's collecting different data and making different requests, this is where you would go to kind of see that, to have everything kind of as an archive of all of your requests. This is for WebSockets, so you actually have to have this stream open if you're interacting with WebSockets. We won't cover WebSockets in this update for now. Maybe in the future down the road we'll include it. But if you are going after WebSockets, similar to your history, it would be shown here. You also have match and replace, which is probably one of the cooler things that I've seen in a proxy tool that allows you to match a particular text and replace it within that request or response. So for example, if you're sending this request and you wanted to change your, let's say, user agent, for example, you can say, hey, I want to create a new rule that's called user agent, and I want you to look within the request first line or maybe the request header. So in this case, because user agent right here is a header in our request, we can say I want you to replace it maybe with a XSS payload. And we're going to tap that in here, and you can actually test it out. And if you're happy with this result right here, you can see that every time this string is showing up on any of these headers, it will replace it with a script. Similar, we can do also the letter A, for example, so we can test it out. You can see anywhere that the letter A is in these different parts of this user agent or this header entirely, it is going to get replaced. So let's do the letter O because we have O in here. I kind of want to show you what this looks like. Now you can see all the letter A's and all the letter O's have been replaced with this string. We'll talk about an example of when this is useful sometimes down the road, but honestly, a lot of times what are the things that I do is I type in XSS payload here and I save it. And anytime when I type in XSS payload into my request, it's going to look at the first line, for example, right here, XSS payload. So anytime that I type that into my browser, it's going to look for it and eventually just replace it with an XSS payload. So it is kind of like an automation, but there is better use cases for this. We'll talk about that throughout the course, but I kind of want to highlight this so you understand what is match and replace, what is it useful for, and how is it used when it comes down to hacking and bug bounty hunting. Now let's take a look at the other areas here. A lot of this stuff may also be a part of the paid program or the paid version of Caido. But one of the things that's really important is looking at the scope. Right here, you can set a scope of what you want to look at when it comes down to looking at a bug bounty program or an application that you're hacking on. Since we are doing a bunch of labs on Hacking Hub, the domain that we use for Hacking Hub is ctfio.com. So that is the domain that we're going to look at. I'm going to just put this in here, Udemy course scope. That's the name of it. But what is in scope is going to be our ctfio.com. Maybe we want to add something like ctf.fu if that domain is used. These are the domains that are going to be allowed for it to capture the request for. And you can say something like maybe google.com. I'm going to put google.com for this case is out of scope and I don't want it to do anything to it. Then we can create that and we can go back to our sitemap or intercept and say, hey, I want you to set my scope into this Udemy course scope that I've created. And now that rule is going to be applied to any time that we refresh a page. So if I do this right now and I come back, you can see that nothing is being queued. And if I do ctfio.com, we'll put that in here, you can see that now it is capturing it and putting it on here. So it's really, really important for you to set a scope so you don't just get a ton of requests getting sent to you. You can just focus on that one domain that you're hacking on. And again, you have to put a star here. I think earlier I didn't put the star in there and it didn't work, but you have to make sure you specify, hey, anything that has a star.ctfio, it means every subdomain within this. And if you're not familiar with subdomains, go watch the recon section later. That will be covered in there. But in here, you can say that, hey, these are the domains that I care about. These are what I'm going to be hacking on and only show them here. Those are the ones that I want to intercept and take a look at. You also have these other options of automate and workflows. I'm not going to cover those. Automate, I think, is a part of the paid version of Caido, and I don't want to sell you Caido in this course, but when you download the free version of Caido, these are kind of the tools that you will see. You can also use the base64 and base64 encode for you to decode and encode your values, so you can actually use it, but I think these are, again, a part of the workflows and not included within the free version.